a part of a potential campaign on the part of the MSG?
Well, at this point, we're not looking at campaign. What we're looking at is getting the feedback from the public and then to prepare a platform that people can support that we can then move forward with.
Thus far, what has that feedback been, and what has it been like?
Well, I think coming out of the round table, we had significant progress in that respect, and the crime summit, the feedback has been very good, and now we want to as I said, broaden the field so that we could look at the other issues on the table.
You mentioned that how crime, conversations surrounding crime and national security may not necessarily be a core theme or topic that is discussed at the Citizens Assembly because of the People's Round Table. But at the same time, it is perhaps the most dominant issue in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, we are not. I mean, when people come there, they may raise those issues, and we are not adverse to them. But I'm just saying that we also want to broaden the discussion because part of the solution to the crime is the solution to many other issues plaguing the country.
Are there any particular speakers? I mean, you mentioned organizations that would be present. Any speakers that have already?
Well, it's basically going to be as an open forum where we're going to hear from different groups. So they would speak from the floor, and then the MSG itself will have a number of speakers, including the political leader, who would address the assembly at the end of the day.
Is there already an expectation of a large attendance at this particular event?
Well, we are catering for somewhere in the vicinity of 400 to 600 persons, right? Because remember, it's a lot of community organizations we see being represented, right, as well as members of the general public. So so that's the sort of turnout we're looking at.
But I understand as well that there are different elements to the Citizens Assembly. There's a health fair as well, and other activities or other stalls, if you may, that would be present during the day. What are those?
Yes. Well, we're going to have a health fair, and we're also going to have, for persons who have kids and want to bring them, we're going to have a playroom where the kids are monitored and so on while the discussions take place. But those would be the other elements of it, but the main element is the discussion. I'm no longer hearing you.
My apologies. Hello? At the end of the day, what do you hope to achieve with respect to these talks? Is it going to lead to other talks? Has that already been discussed? The possibility?
Well, the possibility is that we would probably take this around the country. As I said, we're trying to build a consensus to move forward. All right. So most likely we are going to take this around the country.
But exactly what is the consensus necessary for? Because it doesn't really matter, does it, at the end of the day?
Okay, I have to move from this spot where right. So, but what I can say in closing is that the point is that MSG is moving from a policy perspective. So the first thing before we agitate is to make sure that everybody's on board with a common team, so that we can have a broad front that we can then rally people around to fight for these items.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Bananas, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Wherever you may
thank you very much for the opportunity.
Indeed, wherever you may be, safe travels. All the best.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Citizens Assembly, which is being hosted by the MSG, takes place on Saturday, the 21st of September. This is Saturday that is coming. It's taking place at the Greendot Secondary School's auditorium, and it starts from 2 p.m. It goes on until 5 p.m. The topic, the theme surrounding the Citizens Assembly is A Better Living for All. you would have heard that there would be a number of NGOs, CPOs, and even trade unions present at this particular conversation. It also includes a health fair that is available to all, and a kids room, actually, if you are quite busy with your dependents. Of course, you can still bring them, and they would have the opportunity to be occupied as you participate in those conversations. And there's a possibility some of them themselves may want to participate, but that's up to you as the parent. But as I said, Saturday, 21st of September from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Presale Secondary School's auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on a Prime and One routine. Well, there's lots more to get into. Stay with us.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning as we continue with the conversation. So there is quite a bit that is rather frustrating in TNT, and there's always some positive. Hopefully, later on we will get into some more positive, constructive conversation. But in the meantime, to just share, if you weren't aware, there are a couple of things that are happening in TNT that is rather alarming. Starting with something that is currently taking place in Maracas and Joseph, that particular area. And last week, Thursday and Friday, particularly Friday, we started getting news or reports of people who had fallen severely ill, very, very sick, violently sick, it's being described as. Uh, it seemed to have been a very bad bout of a stomach flu, or even quite possibly food poisoning, because the symptoms that were being experienced by individuals who were even reaching out to me included nausea and diarrhea. And thus far, I haven't gotten any reports of people getting any better. It's something that has really made a number of people within that area rather ill. So there are a few schools actually along that particular route, that main road, as they say, from starting in St. Joseph, heading all the way up to Maracas Valley, and of course to Kodo. And the news that I have gotten, and I'm talking about these are citizens, these are residents within the area who are reporting directly to me, is that there was a possibility that it was contaminated water because a lot of students fell so ill on Friday, even from the University of the Southern Caribbean. And those are the reports that I was getting. So I'm trying to figure out what was happening, hoping to hear something from the Minister of Public Utilities or even the Member of Parliament for that particular area, who happens to also be the Minister of Health, Terence Yelsing. So Terence Yelsing, the Member of Parliament and Minister of Health, I've not heard anything from him thus far in respect to this situation coming out of his constituency, although we have heard that he is not the Terence in reference to a social media video that's circulating. Clearly, I see the minister's priorities. It's all well and good to have a laugh and a joke, but if your constituents are suffering from what appears to be contaminated water, as Minister of Health as well, we would hope to hear from you. Anyway, so this continued because on Saturday I also got reports that a private hospital located in St. Joseph actually had over 200 patients who admitted with similar symptoms. Again, severe nausea and diarrhea, and they had to be treated with such, many of whom were children. And that has continued. So I was able to get an update yesterday from a few residents of the area who have indicated that more people are actually falling ill. So what happened next was typical Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Public Utilities, Marvin Gonzalez, stated that there is no water contamination in St. Joseph, in Maracas, St. Joseph. That's the gist of it. Don't have to go into details. Went on to say that, WASA has indicated that there's nothing, blah, blah, blah. But the mere fact is the minister came out and more or less just rebutted anything that the residents were stating. So if it's not water contamination, the only other thing that I can think of is clearly there's something that's airborne in that area, because everyone is experiencing more or less the same symptoms. But then the minister rebuttals, and then later on, so this is on the Saturday, on the Sunday, we hear from the Water and Sewerage Authority, who says they're conducting independent tests of the water source or the water sources in that particular area. Now, I honestly do not know what the Water and Sewerage Authority meant by independent testing. Whether it be they have third parties that are working for the Water and Sewerage Authority who are conducting their own tests of any possible contaminants or microbes within the water that is being distributed, or whether or not the Water and Sewerage Authority means that they're testing from various sources, from different sources. I don't know exactly what they meant by independent sources, but at the end of the day, the timeline is the minister comes out, haven't heard anything from the Member of Parliament or the Minister of Health. The minister comes out and says, no, there's no water contamination. And then the Water and Sewerage Authority says, oh, well, we're conducting independent tests. What's the point of the minister coming out and making such a statement if there are no results from those independent tests suggesting otherwise? And apart from which, Why is the Water and Sewerage Authority going to actually now waste resources if it is that there is some level of surety that there's no contamination? I can't understand that. That's ridiculous. And when you have a number of people, and at this point it's been described to me as hundreds of people, because I do know quite a number of residents within that particular area, and all of them have fallen ill. When you have all these individuals falling ill, when you have children at schools who are affected and the schools had to close, when the private hospital in that particular area is inundated with patients, because of this situation, your Member of Parliament remains quiet, who is also the Minister of Health, and I can't stress on that enough. And beyond that, it seems as though nobody cares or nobody's listening. We'll wait to see the results of those independent tests. I'm not getting any further updates. Oh, and by the way, to add to all of this, there also seems to be a shortage of, again, drugs that are available to treat these things. The most common is Gravol. Now, I'm not 100% certain, although I would like to think there are other options that will help or aid in the treatment of such illnesses. However, we know that the most common is Gravol, and many people couldn't get that, not just because pharmacies ran out, but of course, with a number of individuals contacting and reaching out, I started getting messages asking where in Trinidad could you get Gravol. Goes back, it also ties back to an interview that we had a couple months ago with the former president of the pharmacy board, Mr. Andrew Rahman, who indicated that yes, indeed, there is a shortage for a number of reasons. Not one specific reason, but a number of reasons. And that is the problem as well. That is something that seems to be not addressed properly here in Trinidad and Tobago. I've heard from the Minister of Health who came out and made a complete, I don't know, the opposite again was said. I can never understand how residents and citizens are seeing one thing, how they are experiencing something, and yet the ministers or the representatives come out and say otherwise. I can never understand that. It just seems so bemusing to me, and at times very comical, because it just seems as though the members of parliament or the ministers just take us for fools or for idiots and says, you know, at the end of the day, whatever we say trumps all. Listen, there is a shortage of drugs. Whether or not it is not being supplied to meet the demand for issues such as foreign exchange, whether or not those who are distributing those drugs are deciding they are no longer going to distribute it, or whether or not there's no longer any approval for these drugs, that is happening. They have patients who have gone to Mount Hope, have gotten prescriptions from doctors in Mount Hope, and then when they go to the dispensary in the public hospital, they can't get those drugs. The drugs are not available. And then you go to the pharmacy and you end up paying hundreds of dollars. Now, we have to have a conversation about health and the quality of healthcare and the availability of healthcare for all in Trinidad and Tobago. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is a serious issue. So coming back to this point, this problem, this issue that is persisting in St. Joseph, because people are still falling ill, we are still awaiting to hear from the Water and Sewerage Authority on their independent test, because I'll be quite honest with you, I don't have any further updates at this time. I will see if anything has been issued, but it is ridiculous and very unfortunate that the Minister of Public Utilities will come out and make that statement before WASA has finished conducting those independent tests. Further to this, it is very sad and unfortunate that the Member of Parliament for the area, who's also the Minister of Health, chooses to remain silent. Now, there's a possibility as well, because of boundaries, that the Member of Parliament may also be Stuart Young for certain parts of that particular valley. Doesn't matter. We haven't heard from any of the elected representatives, those who are elected in charge for representing those people, those citizens, those residents. That's where we're at this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I await further updates and to get anything else. But sincerely, it is sincerely, in the most sincere manner, we are being let down once more by those in authority, by those whom we refer to as leaders. That's whom by those whom we have elected to represent us. And if you are experiencing a shortage with drugs, don't worry, we are very much aware of that. But the Minister of Health will choose to come out and say otherwise. It's good to know, though, that he is not the Terrence in a particular video that was being circulated on social media. Can't speak much to that either because that's a whole other legal issue now. Hope all is well with that happy couple. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a quick break here on the program, and when we return, we will continue with the conversation. Stay with us.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white collar crime though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, we've always got some bad news, but there's still good news out there, and we're glad that we're able to feature that this morning on the program. Are you aware that September is Parang History Month in Trinidad and Tobago? It was actually established in 2018 by the National Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and this year is the 6th year recognizing that month. There are loads of activities that are taking place. And this morning, I'm pleased to welcome to the program President of the National Parang Association of TNT, and also a legend when it comes to Parang, Miss Alicia Jagasa. Good morning, Miss Jagasa. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, buenos dias. Good morning to you and the entire crew, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, the worldwide listenership and viewership.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Parang has long been associated with the joy and the festivities of the Christmas season in Trinidad and Tobago, and we love our Parang. We certainly look forward to going to Parang bands and their concerts or their shows taking place across Trinidad and Tobago. So then how come we're celebrating National Parang History Month in the month of September? That's quite intriguing.
Oh, yeah, it's such a pleasure to be talking about Parang this morning. And yes, Parang History Month, September. I don't know, as Trinidadians, we would realize that Carnival is always very, very, very a part of Christmas. So we found that, every year we are kind of squeezed into these few months, and sometimes the band launches, everything taking place. So we said to ourselves, September, we have to find a way to feature Parang and what Parang is all about, where it came from, to keep our Hispanic heritage alive. So Parang History Month became that month of September, where we start in September and we go from the 1st to the 30th of September. So here we are looking for ways to continue to promote the culture, preserve the culture, and evolve the culture. And we found it very difficult to, cram it into the Christmas and those festivities. So to get the word out, we decided, here's what, let's use September and come straight from September into December for the whole Christmas season. And then of course we have the Parang season, So it was born all out of wanting a space to tell a little more about what Parang is.
So this is not only, as you said, celebrating our culture, but also our cultural icons. Am I correct?
Yes, definitely. I remember the first year that we started in 2018 was through a partnership with Fiesta Plaza Movie Town, Mr. Heathcliff West, and it was of course a novelty to be every Wednesday at Movie Town featuring a different Parang band. And the first year, I remember we had La Divina Pastora. So La Divina Pastora will come not just to perform, but to tell La Divina Pastora's entire history. Talk about Daisy Vosé, talk about how she got into Parang. And, generally they were able to give a little more to the public about who they are, where they come from, and their influences. And that happened not just with La Divina Pastora, but a number of bands like San Jose, Serenaders. You would know of San Jose and the Flores de San Jose, because those are names that once you have Christmas, you'll hear them popping up. Yeah, so.
Now, in that sense, how are you using the art form because you just gave a fine example, but now that we're in 2024, we all love Parang, but how are you using the art form to actually educate or bring a sense of awareness and celebration to most of the younger generations, when taste of music is a bit different to ours?
But the wonderful thing is that Parang History Month, like for 2024, we are inside the Parang ban. So we have the, the mature bands, we have the young bands and the in between bands. So what happens is that the younger generation, what they do, we go around, we talk to the younger ones about, especially those in Parang, about their influences, who influenced them, because we do have a lot of young paranderos coming out from secondary school they want to be big band status. So, we would go and interview them, ask them, what are your influences? Why do you love this art form? And mind you, when you really look at the present trend, the Ministry of Education would have injected a lot of Spanish-speaking migrants into the school system. We see Parang as that bridge, especially that language barrier to bridge, to give that inclusive kind of experience for these children, because they would find that if we do have Spanish-speaking children in schools, they will gravitate towards the Spanish music that they are hearing or offered in schools. And Parang is one of those vehicles that we use to bridge that gap. And of course, we are on the road to becoming bilingual. So we have a wonderful Junior Parang Festival that actually gives us the opportunity to preserve the art form using our youths.
I would agree with you, though. It's always good to see a lot of these young Parang bands. And I say, how are we getting young people more involved in Parang? And you're absolutely right. I think a lot of them are already involved, seeing a lot of these pioneers from secondary schools. So it is always a good sight. But it's very interesting what you mentioned there in respect to how Parang can actually be a bridge, when it comes to various cultures. Now that we have a lot of Spanish-speaking migrants that are being integrated into the education system, it also speaks to that level of unity, I suppose. It brings a level of unity. It unifies these cultures that are coming together, even within the school system.
Yes, definitely. Because you would find that in Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of our parang music is influenced by, I always say, the Venezuelans. We would have adopted a lot of Venezuelan songs at Christmas time, parang, and we would enjoy it. Gloria Alcazar, she was Venezuelan. So, all those songs just came and we started to sing it, So when you really look at it, we have a close relationship already, right? And one of the things that we recognize is that when we go to teach the Spanish music, if the children don't know the meaning of it, they can't really execute it. So you see how the tools, it's a learning tool. So when we say, well, this means this means that means this, and it start to get them involved in the learning of the language in a kind of smart way that, not a classroom telling about this verb, that verb, conjugate the verbs, It's a smart way to get them involved and get them to Spanish.
Taking me back there. But in that regard as well, you mentioned that level, that bridge that could exist. But in respect to Trinidad and Tobago, why is parang so important to us? I mean, what would you say it's a tool of national identity?
Well, Trinidad and Tobago, I always wonder, I always say to myself, do we have a Hispanic heritage? Is there something that has moved this art form to becoming what it is and what it means to Trinbagonian at Christmas time to hear this music? And one of the things, I mean, I could go into the history because, of course, we have the first peoples, right? And when you hear about Christmas, and I go into Trini thing now, when you hear about Christmas, what is other than the food that you're hearing, what is the one thing in Trinidad and Tobago that I can say is ours that is Christmas? That is parang. Parang and soca parang and parang soca. You know how Michael say it in with DNA kind of thing? When Christmas time comes, it's like in your DNA to hear a little parang. You must hear it. If you don't hear it, it's like, Paranderos are the first set of carolers. What paranderos used to do is to go from house to house, bringing the message of what Christmas is all about, which is the birth of Jesus Christ. So when we go from house to house, it's really to bring a message of what is happening around this time. So when you visit a home, that is the gift that you're bringing to a home. So when we hear about carolers and they would hear the normal songs like, "Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining, and angels we have heard," we paranderos bring that same message, but in parang songs. So when you go to the home, if you do not sing an aguinaldo, Anunciación or Nacimiento, that is the gift that you're bringing. Yeah. So for us at Christmas time, that receiving that gift from paranderos is real important. It's an important gift of music to receive around that time.
I actually, I wish we could get back to that point where we parang from house to house.
Yes.
I honestly wish so, because for me personally, you mentioning all of that, and if I think about it, when it comes to Christmas, when the sorrel is boiling and everybody's in the house, sorrel is boiling, and you're smelling that aroma, everybody's doing something, whether it be decorating, whether it be laughing, and you hear parang music, you feel complete. That's like a true Trini experience.
True Trini experience, and that is what it's all about, that true Trini experience. Even if we remove everything else in terms of, as I said, the history, our Hispanic history, that true Trini experience you can't get until you're here at little Lara Brothers in the back while you're painting.
No, but you see, very important. By the way, there's no, you can never beat a Trini Christmas. I stand by that. I've experienced other ways of celebrating Christmas. You cannot beat a Trini Christmas. But you just mentioned Lara Brothers, and it's something, I'm wondering if you have an opinion on. We speak about parang, and most people think about soca parang, and not necessarily the traditional parang, of which I mean, a lot of us know. Is soca parang becoming so dominant? I mean, it's a one form of parang. Parang is always evolving. Everything is always evolving. But is it becoming so dominant that we may be losing that traditional parang factor?
Well, parang, soca parang, parang soca. Three. I always tell them is parang, soca parang, and parang soca. You just put one word in front of the next, and the difference is that one is with a parang rhythm behind it, and the other one is with a soca rhythm behind it, right? And then you have the traditional parang itself. Now, soca parang is crazy, and I followed for this already, and I had to tell him, I said, soca parang and parang soca are offsprings of parang, right? And one of the things is very important that parang embraces its offsprings, which is soca parang and parang soca. The more we run away from it, is the more we are going to realize we may end up like calypso and soca, where now you ask a child to sing a calypso and they sing a soca song because all they in their head is soca. And if we are not mindful, it's the same thing that's going to happen to parang. And it is already happening because when I go to school to teach and I say, sing a parang for me, some children will sing a soca parang, instead of a real traditional parang. It's very important to find that blend so that one does not dominate the other. And if any must have to dominate, it must be the mother of it all, which is the traditional parang. Now, soca parang is very popular, of course. If there's a language that you don't know, you would gravitate to the one that you can relate to, Hey, yeah, boy, Scrunta say, I want a piece of pork. I want a piece of pork. You would understand that faster than a la medianoche. Say that, what was that he's saying there, So I think that language barrier, which it's kind of becoming smaller and smaller, right, is certainly going to benefit the parang art form. And because of the rich junior parang festival that we have right now, we are ensuring as an association that does not happen to the parang art form, that soca parang comes and dominate and take over parang in its entirety. So we want to remain on top, and even though, yes, it may be a challenge right now because of the language barrier, we're still on top.
I think so. I mean, if you think about it, the junior parangs, that in itself is one way of simply preserving a traditional parang, and I think that is something to be very much proud of. I mean, listen, we all like parang. We all like parang. We all love parang. I haven't met somebody as yet who told me that they don't like parang, and if they do, I don't necessarily want to meet them.
But they were talking about parang and that how we use parang to tell our stories. Just like our calypsos, as our stories told. Same thing we do with soca parang and parang soca. And I guess because of people like Baron and they who are into calypso and soca, they were able to blend the two, and come up with the lovely songs like he sings, like One Man Parang. That is how they do. From Sunday, Grandy, all the way to Citrus, Parang in night and day. We have some wonderful songs that actually tell of the parandero, So all that we are talking about here and talking about Parang History Month, in Parang History Month, you're going to be getting a lot because a lot of people don't know the difference between parang soca and soca parang. So all these we teach people, in Parang History Month. Our icon Clarita Rivas. Clarita Rivas, we launched our parang tent last year, and the people we were saying, do you all know who's the first parang queen? And they calling everybody else every day as if it was there, this. And we are like, no. The first parang queen was Clarita Rivas. Everybody was like, really, really shocked. So it's important to get that message out, get people knowing our icons, get people understanding their influences and how it came about. So Parang History Month is all about that, telling the stories that you don't normally hear about Parang in Parang History Month.
So then what are some of the activities that are carded for Parang History Month and by extension, the parang season, which we are beginning to get into?
Well, Parang History Month this year, we're focusing on the Inside the Parang Band series because we recognize the same thing we're talking about the youths. A lot of paranderos in Trinidad and Tobago, they are not known. Even though they are iconic bands, nobody don't really know them to say, well, okay, this iconic band, especially the younger generation, this song I'm singing is from Henry Pereira, and Henry Pereira is from Los Reyes, and they don't know these things. So we're going inside the Parang band, interviewing them on their influences, why they get into Parang, what they love about Parang, and get into the icon of some of the icons because they sing a lot of the icon songs. Why they sing these songs? What about this icon? What they learn. So Parang History Month this year is inside the Parang band. Also, finances. We can't have all the venues, everything that we wanted to do. So right now it is all about an online series. So the marketing team, they go from band to band, asking pointed questions to get information on that particular band. And in a way, you're actually getting to know your icons, and their influences because of their icons. So that's what Spanish Streamer is going to be this year. We're going straight into the season right after that. And I heard you mention before House Parang. This year, Fiesta de Paranda is a House Parang experience. So we will be going from house to house this year. So you better keep your door open.
I'm going to look it right
now. Everything is going to be planned unless you send me your number and your location, right? But everything is going to be well planned out because you're going from house to house. That's the tradition, it have no big fete, no nothing. We just want to bring back that element that was so unique to us as paranderos, going from house to house in a planned way, right? Because everything. So you could check out NPAT's social media platform so that you can see where we're going and know how to get on board on this house parang excursion that we're going on.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that, and I'm definitely going on to NPAT's pages to get more information on that, and I would encourage other people to do that as well. That's really exciting, actually, that is the plan and intention this year. Speaking of which, going down the line, what is the National Parang Association's goals and their ambitions as they continue to educate people, as they continue to promote and preserve really our culture?
Well, for us at the association, our main aim is to get a place to call our home. So everything is kind of geared towards a self-sustainability plan, and we have a home right now in 22 Hollis Avenue, but we can't really use it because of the fact that it needs repairs. So we're really looking forward to having a place to call home where we can, from January to December, we have a space to exist, especially for the international market and tourism, that when people come to the shores of Trinidad and Tobago and they hear about Parang, that they don't have to wait until Christmas to know what it is and to experience it and to take it out of the box of October, November, December, and put it from January to December and find a way of including Parang in everything that we are doing from January to December, starting from Carnival, because we having Carni Parang, and where we are able to use the instruments of Parang, develop our skills on the instruments of Parang in playing our local soca and calypso. So our main aim right now is definitely a place to call our own, and organizing and getting back to that point where we have exchange internationally of paranderos and have international festivals, because the paranda, there are a lot of representations of paranda outside. So really and truly, we want it to become an international type of event that people come and say, well, okay, we have Cuba this year, we have Venezuela coming in, we have Mexico coming in, in this international Parang Festival. So for us, we have a lot of plans for NPAT. Of course, our National Parang Orchestra, developing the National Parang Orchestra. It's the first of its kind in the world. And I hear about the Parang Orchestra. And of course, the Parang Tent, which we launched last year, which we are really looking forward to having it operational from January to December. So also you can look at it for the dates of Parang Tent also for 2024.
Well, Mr. Augusta, are there ways that people can support NPAT? And if so, how could they reach out to NPAT to render their support, especially if NPAT is really working on getting that permanent home that is needed?
Yes, we really do. Maybe the person who won that 16 million, could call.
Yes.
You can call 785-0248, or you could email us at secretarynpat@gmail.com, or check out any of our social media handles. We are the National Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and you could shoot us a message if you wish to support the association in any way at all.
Well, Mr. Augusta, this has been an absolute treat. Thank you so very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and look forward to all that is to come as we celebrate Parang History Month. And of course, we get into the core of the season where we're starting to get there. I think people are already feeling it and anticipating it. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having this discussion on Parang this morning. And please do remember, keep your door open, Akilan.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm excited for that. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Take care.
Too.
Ladies and gentlemen, wonderful when it comes to National Parang Month here. We're celebrating in Parang History Month. And apart from which, it's so good to hear that part of the plans is that house sales Parang. It's already been planned out, ladies and gentlemen, so I definitely look forward to that experience. But also, when it comes to the junior Paraleros, they're really the ones, on the part of the Parang Association for promoting that. These young ones are the ones that are going to preserve our culture and our identity. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. We will return shortly. Stay with us.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. I mean, and Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN Content Capital.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement. If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
They believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploiting the system. A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh, available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thanks for being with us this morning as we continue with the conversation. Now, social media has a near constant presence in most teenagers' lives. It really plays a role. Some people look at it as being a form or the only form of communication, but it's also seen as a form of therapy. Apart from that, what are the consequences, whether it be positive or negative, of a social media presence or constant social media use on the behavioral and social psychology of teenagers? Well, I'm joined this morning by our resident psychologist. I say that as though many of us in WESN need to have a psychologist present all the time. But, of course, the host of Psych, Mr. Sule Joseph. Good morning, Sule. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Keaton. Thank you for having me. And I hope that was not a slight dig at suggesting that people in the media don't need therapists.
Sule, I personally, and I've said before, we need therapy with what we are exposed to all the time, and really how stressful our jobs can be. Therapy is very much, so definitely. It's very, very important. Which is why our form of therapy is sometimes having your presence and the extensive conversations which you have. But Sule, thanks for joining us this morning. A very broad question, but as best as possible, what is the impact of social media on a teenager's behavioral and social psychology?
The easiest way to answer that, Peter, is to answer it with another question, which is, what would be the behavioral impact of nicotine or caffeine to a child or teenager, and not just a little use, but imagine them using it as often as that they use social media. So the impact could be as significant or as severe. it can be, and for those people who don't see coffee as being an issue, and really is not, but the caffeine in coffee can be very addictive. For those of us who know what nicotine is, you find nicotine in cigarettes among a whole host of other things. But nicotine as well is quite addictive to the body. And can you imagine then having your child smoke a cigarette as often as they utilize social media? Or could you imagine your child drinking coffee as often as they use social media? So I go that extreme to show that this, of course, is something that is heavily addictive. It can influence and impact behavior, shape thought patterns. Essentially, social media can do your job for you, which is parent your child, right? So you want to kind of be cautious. So when persons ask me, well, how much time is too much time? Well, in this age, I suppose you can't totally avoid social media altogether. But how many cigarettes are too many cigarettes? How much coffee is too much coffee? How early? How early is a cigarette harmful to a child? How early is caffeine or coffee? How early do you want to expose your child? And before people argue that technology, yes, you want to expose your child to technology and advancements, and you want your children to book around with the happenings of technology and so on. Persons often confuse and conflate technology with social media. A child can be exposed to a tablet and have developmental games and puzzles and so on available to them with restricted time. That's not social media. Your child won't die not being on social media before a certain time. It's not that's not a thing. Technology can exist without social media. For those who remember, way back in the day, before there was Facebook and Instagram, there were computers, right? so there were also other social media platforms, yes, but it was not a popular thing. So technology did exist. As I mentioned, essentially what was going to happen is that you're going to allow technology, or you're going to allow social media to heavily parent your child. Do you want that? Do you want coffee companies educating your child on choices? Do you want cigarette companies educating your child on, best health practices kind of thing?
Listen, that's a very, very interesting way of putting it, how social media has the power to actually have, or the influence rather, in respect to doing a parent's job, and that is raising a child. When we speak about teenagers, it's a crucial development stage, and you don't necessarily want that happening, as you mentioned. But are we painting social media in too much of a negative manner? Are there positives as well? For example, it allows for connecting with others or connecting with those who have shared interests. It allows for self-expression. It allows for communication. Isn't that a positive of really that we don't focus enough on?
It is a positive, definitely. And social media, just like anything else, is a tool, or rather should be a tool. And when persons are prepared to correctly utilize a tool for a period and then rest it down, then that's fine. But when you're not equipped, so you don't have the requisite skills to use a tool properly, then you're going to use it in a way that is harmful. And when you're talking about teenagers, during this teenage period, generally, what we as psychologists call this period is a period of turmoil where children are utilizing the values that they would have been given, or they should have been given, prior to becoming a teenager, right? In their more developmental phases, let's say up to about age 7 or 10 or around there, right? What were the values I was given by my parents and so on, or the caregivers, versus what is expected of me by my peers and society. And so they are trying to find that balance of what is appropriate, what, trying to impress the peers and so on, versus what are the values my parents have given me. Now, that is a very precarious time. And so while they are trying to find that balance, in the back of that, you also have to remember developmentally here that their brains, the frontal lobe, that's the big bulbous, that forehead part you have here, that part of your brain, that does not fully develop until age 25. And that is responsible for critical thinking and decision making. That's a big part of why insurance companies don't charge you such a high rate for young drivers under 25. Because that rational part of your brain has not fully developed yet. So you're prone to making poor choices and decisions, very spontaneous and so on and that kind of thing. Put it together, where you have that spontaneous thinking, you have that irrational possible functioning, and persons exploring and trying to uncover what's the best value for them system for them to have for themselves. It makes for a very precarious and dangerous situation with regard to social media. So yes, there are a lot of positives. Yes, they can connect, but it's also a time when they can be easily influenced and shaped and developed as well. So it's a catch-22, it's a 50-50 sort of thing that you do still need to monitor. It can't be unfeathered. You don't want to give a child unlimited access to cash as a teenager and just walk away, because cash is a good thing and they can do all these healthy things with it, get clothes, they can buy school books, but let's be real, if we give a child a credit card with unlimited access, or a teenager a card with unlimited access, how many of them are going to only do healthy things?
Sule, I mean, that's an excellent point that you made there. So as is with most things, it speaks to a balance and having to find that balance, everything in moderation, even social media and social media usage. But, in your opinion, is there a need to examine this a bit further in the sense that if we take a look at Australia, for example, Australia recently have proposed the possibility of banning the use of social media up until a certain age, or even the possibility of limiting social media use for teenagers up until a certain age. Is that something that needs to be considered here in Trinidad and Tobago, and probably by extension the Caribbean?
Boy, it's come with some good questions. All right, so the idea of limiting social media for teens is an excellent idea. On paper, it's an excellent idea. The issue we have in Trinidad, I can't speak for the entire region, but I can speak for Trinidad. The issue we have in Trinidad is implementation and continuous accountability. On paper, it sounds good. Theoretically, what you're asking is for the government to help parent your child, which they kind of do anyway, because a lot of parents don't parent their child or their children. You're asking for the government to help parent your child, and so institute a system that officially limits or restricts how much access they have. Really, that's a parent's job. Really, a parent ought to be the one restricting the amount of social media access that their children have. But it's an excellent idea on the face of it, because yes, someone ought to do it. The way social media works, and I would have mentioned previously, like I mentioned coffee and so on, because social media, just like anything else, is addictive. It causes your brain to release the feel-good chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, and you feel good. When you see likes, you feel good. And so for the teenage brain, it hijacks the teenage brain. Even adult brains are not fully developed. And there are a lot of us out there. It hijacks the brain, and it does a strange thing where it tricks you into doing more exaggerated behaviors to get more likes, because the likes feel good. It causes your brain, it's almost like you hit a cigarette, as I've said, or you've smoked a joint, or you've done something. It has a very similar release of feel-good chemicals, dopamine and serotonin. So you feel really good. So if it's not restricted and you're on social media all the time, you'll find yourself trying to do more and more for that feel-good hit. It literally becomes an addiction. And you find people doing some of the most outrageous things on social media, trying to vie for attention and likes. Do you really want your child to be one of those zombies, one of those people who, you know?
Well, is that also a side effect, or rather a con, and by extension will have an impact on a child's confidence if it is that they what my goal is, my intention, or what I really want to achieve is getting the most amount of likes on a status update, or even a photo that I post to social media. I mean, that certainly doesn't sound very healthy for one's confidence.
Yes, there's a high possibility. Now, if you become addicted to social media, and your sense of self and self-validation is heavily reliant on external factors from social media, and we are aware that social media could be very fickle, right? So you can receive some love from social media today, and tomorrow, they've flipped on its head and you're attacked. You can feel very you can fall into depressive type states. You can feel a significant sadness. You can feel the withdrawal. If you don't have that support from social media, you don't have the likes that you tend to like to have and want, you can feel almost as though you're withdrawing from that drug. Remember, the likes is what makes you feel high and happy. And so if you don't get that, it's almost like you experience that withdrawal symptoms. You now want it back. You want that feeling back. And so that's why we can have some people who can record all of their family and relationship drama and marital issues and then post it on social media. And then when it gets too far to negative comments, now want to rush and pull it back. And you want to take it down, and you want to send people pre-action protocols because you don't want the negative comments and so on, right? That part of it weighs heavy. That feels as though someone has ripped something from you. So that part of it, you're absolutely correct. And that's for adults. Imagine for children, for teenagers, right? Who value heavily their peers' opinions. That is a very, very significant, right? Emotional either stimulant or emotional manipulator, right? Depending on the likes, that can land them in some serious depressive symptoms.
But you mentioned that on paper, limiting social media use can be a good thing, but it's really up to the parent or the adult figure within the household to actually make such a decision or implement such action. That being said, you also mentioned that a lot of teenagers live on social media, and it is quite possible that they've become parented by social media because of how much it's influential on their lives. If that is the case, it sounds a lot like self-responsibility here to understand and recognize that this is where I need to stop. I've had enough. I can cut off for today, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But Suli, even that sounds rather difficult if emotionally teenagers have not fully developed. And as you mentioned, even as adults, our brains have not fully developed.
Yeah, you're asking a teenager to self-regulate. That's what you call it, right? Self-regulation. So you're asking a teenager to self-regulate. These teenagers are in the process of discovering where their limits are. The whole idea of being a teenager is going beyond what is usually acceptable because they're trying to discover where do I fit in this world? Where do I fit in relation to my values? Where do I fit in relation to society's values and so on? So they go extreme. That's why when you find college parties or university parties in the US and Trinidad and so on, you find a lot of drunken youth and so on because they're experimenting. That period is an experimental period. Most, if not almost all smokers, or the large majority of smokers, start smoking in teenage years. Yeah, you don't find a large amount of smokers starting later down in life. They usually start, as a teenager, during this period of finding yourself and experimenting. And you're asking someone who is in a space of extremity, right, to regulate themselves and not use something that makes them feel good, especially when they can't see the downsides of using something like this. I mean, you're not sticking a drug in the veins, they're not inhaling this drug. People may say, listen, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of these things, I don't party and club, right? My only vice really is social media. That's not a vice, it's just how I connect with my friends and talk to my people. And that's it for them. Right? So they don't necessarily see the negative of it.
And then at the same time, we're asking adults to regulate their kids, and even then, that's not necessarily always going to work out because some adults can't even regulate their own vice. Or
regulate themselves, correct.
They can't even regulate themselves. So, Sule, how do you
tell me to regulate my social media time when my mother on social media winding down the place and doing the most, I guess, for likes and how do she come and tell me to regulate my time?
Yeah. It's always that contradictory response as an adult, where you say you need to act like a child, like an adult. You need to act like an adult because you are getting to that stage and understand that you're an adult. And then 2 minutes later, you stop with them and say you're just a child. So it's sometimes, yes.
Correct. The messaging as well. Yeah, correct.
So then, Sule, I mean, how do we navigate around this particular challenge? I don't want to call it a severe issue, but it certainly is a challenge. How do you navigate around this?
We have to accept that it is part of life. I don't know if blocking social media altogether is not necessarily the best thing to do. It's something that, one, I would educate. For example, vaping is a significant issue that we refuse to have a conversation about in Trinidad. I don't know why. But every single teen that I see either has vaped or is vaping, right? I mean, I have hardly met a teen who has not vaped once at least, or is currently vaping socially. They call it social vaping. So those are issues that exist. Banning it does not necessarily solve the issue because then what you're going to have is people hoarding either those vape things or hoarding VPNs to connect to social media remotely through proxy websites and so on or whatever. So banning it is not going to fix the addiction and the issue. What we need to do is to educate parents, educate children about it, and encourage parents to teach the children restraint. So yes, you can have access. Yes, of course, it makes sense. But there needs to be some restraint. You need to also check. Persons also need to be able to do checks to see if they have addictions. If you find yourself waking up in the night to check your messages and to see what's going on, you find yourself checking to see what kind of responses you have on your posts. You put up a post and every 2 seconds you're checking to see who's responded, if anybody responded to your post, if you have any likes, you have any dislikes. Social media is not necessarily this demon and a bad thing. Right? You have a whole host of people now who have a career on social media. Being an influencer is a career. Right? So you have people doing that and making very good money in the US and in the UK and so on and abroad, just doing those things, being influencers. So it can be a good thing career-wise. But on the flip side, you have some of these same influencers parenting your child, telling your child what they should wear, they should buy, what's the best thing to do. And so one day you might find your child liking the color pink and, I don't know, sneakers, and the next day your daughter no longer wants to wear pink and sneakers. She now wants to wear, I don't know, whatever is the new craze that this influencer who's parenting your child is telling them to like, right? So you kind of just want to understand what they're watching, who they're listening to, who they're communicating with. Yeah, parent your child. If it was an in-person physical interaction, you'd want to know who your child's speaking with. So
using the example that you used of vaping, it all goes back to ease of accessibility and availability.
Yes.
That ties into social media as well. I mean, but put it this way, you're right. It's a good example of the level of influence or just how powerful social media is. I mean, you might know this when this entire thing about this word demure, however you pronounce it, was just it became such a widely used term, and
so mindful. So mindful. So demure.
Very much. Very much.
Yeah.
Well, Sule, listen, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thank you very much for an excellent discussion, really, and thank you for always your time and your presence, not only for sites, but of course for being on AM Prime and having these discussions. It's certainly appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Always happy to be part of the WSN family.
Of course, man. We hope to see you soon in person again because, as we say, a session is needed. Yeah?
Noted.
All the best, my friend. Take care.
Yeah, have a blessed day, Trinidad and Tobago.
Ladies and gentlemen, how much influence as a parent do you have in your child's life? You don't necessarily want to tell your child who they are or what they should do or what they should be. You want, but you also don't want to be an absence in that development stage. You don't want the rest of the world to parent your child. Because if your child does something wrong, you always question how, why, what did I do? The best thing that you can do as a parent is be present. Be there. Always have an understanding of what is going on in your child's life, and that relationship is integral. Even tying into the discussion of social media, I found it very profound actually when Sule mentioned that there is always that possibility because of the power of social media, how it can be so influential where it may even take over that job or the responsibility of a parent in raising their child. So this is something that we have to monitor, but there are nations around the world who are actually looking towards taking some action. I know that the UK is looking at such and has been trying to develop policy for quite some time. Whether or not that is implemented, I can't say for fact, so I don't want to mislead you or share misinformation there. But I know that Australia is the latest nation to put forward some level of proposals. So it's something to examine, especially here in Trinidad and Tobago. And as Sule mentioned, at the end of the day, the best option, perhaps the most pertinent option is a parent's presence in their child's life. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, that's the end of AM Prime for today. Thank you so very much to all my guests for joining me on the program this morning. I had a great program and excellent topics of discussions. And of course, thank you very much to you, the viewer, for always being present and for always joining us in for these conversations. To my team at WESN, who always ensure that we are live, Brian Gomezberg and Maya Wood, thank you very much again for all your hard work. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Keaton Shaw reminding you that today is a good day to have a good day. And we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye. Take care.
A series of false claims. As the founder of Bad Boy Records, Combs became an influential figure in American hip-hop. Along with the notorious B.I.G., he collaborated with a host of top artists, including Mary J. Blige, Usher and Lil' Kim.
Now, across the Northern Hemisphere, it's back to school, and more parents are facing a common dilemma about smartphones. So how do you balance safety, independence and productivity in a digital age? Joining me is digital parenting expert Elizabeth Milovedov. Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming in. New school reforms in France, which are pushing for no phones in the classroom, and we do know that already some kids leave their smartphones in magnetic pouches, others are leaving them at home. At the same time, those children do need them still, don't they, for the bus pass, checking homework assignments and more. So what is the government actually hoping to achieve with this reform?
Yeah, and that is really a struggle, right? Because the government, they're concerned with excessive screen time, they're concerned with child development, and so they're creating these rules, whether we're in the UK and we're looking at classroom distractions or mental health concerns or online safety, they're trying to get some sort of action going to really support children. So the UK, the US as well, they're also concerned with academic performance, mental health, and bullying, because a lot of these things are happening, unfortunately, with smartphones. And then we can flip over to France, where we also had this smartphone ban back in 2018. And you can see that we've developed it. And it's still the same overwhelming concerns, which are the distractions of smartphones and trying to keep our children focused and on target.
And of course, you know, not to mention when they come out of the classroom, they're straight out onto the street checking their social media apps. Smartphones, as I've just said, are a very big part of children's lives, especially as they head back to school. So what is your advice to parents and caregivers on this matter?
Right. So I think even before I talk about some of the advice, I think parents need to know that we hear them, right? They are so frustrated with peer pressure, with trying to understand the social isolation that comes if you don't have the latest phone. And they're also concerned with this loss of real world experiences for their children. So they want them to be off their smartphones, and they want the schools to help because they're having a little bit of difficulty setting boundaries. But I think that we need to sort of create a triangle of trust between the educators, between parents, and the children. We need to ask for their opinions. And so my advice for parents is that that they understand, first of all, the school policy. What does the school say? Because they vary. Again, as I showed the different countries, they vary from state to state. Some are all out bans, others are limited use. For example, if your child is diabetic and needs their phone, you know, there are exceptions. So let's not think that it's an outright ban. Parents need to set clear boundaries, and they can also do this with other parents in the classroom. If we can get together to decide end of the school year gifts for the teachers, we can all decide together about how we want to handle smartphones. I also think it's important that parents dig in there for parental controls. I know that they are difficult to use. I know that they're not always perfect, but really try to give it their best shot. And I would say, lastly, educate. Educate and don't restrict. We have to find a way to help our children in the digital age. We have to find a way to help them thrive. And unfortunately, we've seen this before with bans for television, for video games, for radio. Banning doesn't always work, so we're going to have to teach them critical thinking, digital literacy, and how to use them responsibly.
We are also role models ourselves, are we not?
Yes, we are. We really are. That's the hard one, too.
Indeed. Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Coming up, it's an untold story of the Second World War, how France whitewashed its colonial troops during the liberation. As France celebrates 80 years since the end of the Nazi occupation, soldiers who'd long been forgotten have finally been remembered. These experienced fighters came from all corners of the French Empire. On August the 15th, 1944, they stormed southern France and won key battles to liberate the nation. But because of the colour of their skin, up to 20,000 African riflemen were replaced by untrained white members of the resistance. Aurore Dupuis, Florence Gaillard and Jonathan Walsh tell us more about the other D-Day in a new episode of France in Focus.
The forgotten landing of World War II.
Ils ont quitté leur terre pour venir défendre la nôtre.
Colonial troops sidelined by the military command.
Le blanchiment, c'est littéralement remplacer des soldats de couleur par des soldats blancs.
Personnellement, je ne voulais même pas partir. Moi, je ne voulais pas laisser mes camarades.
Their efforts played a crucial role for France.
Sans la Provence, De Lattre n'aurait pas été présent ce 8 mai 1945 pour la capitulation allemande.
– 15th of August 1944, a sunny day on the beaches of Provence. For historians, it was in fact Adolf Hitler's darkest day. The Soviets had launched an offensive in the east,